A handful of men will rule business and the nation for half a century with their brilliance and blind ambition. They know no bounds, recognize no authority but their own.
The people who were called the robber barons by their critics, and I suppose would be called industrial titans by their admirers, were really the agents of the first stage of modern industrial capitalism. An enormous number of the big corporations that are still a major part of American life were created in the late 19th century, most of them by very talented, very aggressive, often very ruthless individual entrepreneurs. And their achievements are extraordinary. They transformed the American economy. But they also did so very often in a very brutal, harsh way, which is what led them to be called the robber barons.
The most powerful of these men is J.P. Morgan, the man who finances the railroads and the rest of American industry. He has a vision of a bold new industrial nation towering over the world, and he makes it happen. His origins are hardly humble. His father is a rich international banker who worries over his son's often impulsive judgments. Young Morgan gets a big boost from the Civil War. He sees the conflict as a business opportunity, not a cause, and profits greatly. He'll soon control 4 of the 6 major railroads in the country, banks, insurance companies, industrial corporations, a financial empire worth billions. At a lavish dinner party in 1900, a close associate of Andrew Carnegie convinces Morgan to buy out Carnegie's vast steel holdings. A few weeks later, Carnegie scrawls the asking price of $480 million on a piece of scrap paper. And U.S. Steel, the world's largest industrial enterprise, is created. Andrew Carnegie, unlike Morgan, had not been born with the proverbial silver spoon in his mouth. Carnegie is a genuinely self-made man. From his immigrant father, an impoverished Scottish weaver, young Carnegie learns both the value of a dollar and the importance of social justice. Working as a railroad official, Carnegie grasps a simple idea better than anyone else. You can't build railroads without rails, so he invests in iron, eventually controlling the industry. And when iron gives way to steel, he dominates that industry too.
There was tremendous resentment of the way the wealthy used their wealth. That was one reason why people like Andrew Carnegie and to some degree John D. Rockefeller were such conspicuous philanthropists, because they were concerned that the wealthy class was going to become a target of national anger if they didn't legitimize themselves in some way in the eyes of the nation. That worked for Carnegie. He became, after having been one of the most brutal steel barons of the late 19th century, he became, in the last years of his life, a sort of fuzzy, beloved philanthropist.
In his Gospel of Wealth, Carnegie proclaims,
"This, then, is held to be the duty of the man of wealth: to set an example of modest, unostentatious living, shunning display and extravagance; to consider all surplus revenues which come to him simply as trust funds; to produce the most beneficial results for the community, the man of wealth thus becoming the mere trustee and agent for his poorer brethren."
Still, many prominent citizens wonder if the growing gap between rich and poor will do lasting harm to American democracy. America is now a very different country from the nation of small farmers and merchants imagined by Thomas Paine and Thomas Jefferson. Little more than 100 years after the Revolution, the robber barons have transformed it into a corporate giant and made the U.S. the world power in oil, steel, finance, and communications. The hand hands and hearts needed to build modern America are willingly supplied by immigrants. First, Irish, Chinese, Scandinavian, and German. Then Jewish, Russian, Italian, Greek, Polish, and Lithuanian. Some are escaping the tyranny of prejudice. Most, the tyranny of poverty. 25 million people will touch our shores between 1865 and 1914. Most at New York's Ellis Island. Many arrive eager to build new lives and raise families. These greenhorns come to stay, like a young Lithuanian Jew named Pauline Newman.
Of course, we came steerage. That's the bottom of the ship and 3 layers of bunks. Of course, you can understand that it wasn't all that pleasant when the people on the 2nd bunk or the 3rd bunk were ill. You had to suffer and endure not only your own misery, but the misery of the people above you. We went by wagon to my brother's apartment on Hester Street and Essex on the Lower East Side. We were all bewildered to see so many people coming and going and shouting.
The new immigrants, men, women, and children, go to work in the factories of soot-stained cities like New York and Boston. They come looking for freedom and opportunity, and they are ready to sweat for it. The hours are long, the conditions bleak, so newcomers like Rose Schneiderman challenge the owners to improve things. Rose works in a New York factory.
After I had been working as a cap maker for 3 years, it began to dawn on me that we girls needed an organization. The men had organized already and had gained some advantages, but the bosses had lost nothing, as they took it out on all of us. We were helpless. No one girl dare stand up for anything alone. Matters kept getting worse.
Like many immigrants, Rose Schneiderman and Pauline Newman are committed to holding America to its democratic ideals. They will become labor organizers, enduring the threats of the owners and the resistance of male workers.
Turns out that women in this period really want to be organized, many of them, and in the garment industries, it turns out that they form the backbone of what becomes the International Ladies Garment Workers Union first, and then the Amalgamated Clothing Workers Union, and then a little later on some of the textile workers unions and so on, are all built out of women's organizing.
Between 1881 and 1905 alone, 37,000 strikes involving 7 million workers in virtually every industry rocked the country. The owners win battle after battle, often with the help of the police and the National Guard. It will take decades, but courage and conviction will eventually transform labor conditions and the lives of working people throughout America.